Now that you have a local Git repository, we're going to look at how we can take that code and push it up to a third-party service called GitHub. GitHub is going to let us host our Git repositories remotely, so our machine never crashes, can get our code back, and it also has great collaboration tools. So we can open source a project, letting others use our code, or we can keep it private, so only people we choose to collaborate with can see the source code. Now, in order to actually communicate between our machine and GitHub, we're going to have to create something called an SSH key. SSH keys were designed to securely communicate between two computers. In this case, it's going to be our machine and the GitHub server. This is going to let us confirm that GitHub is up to Git. Really smooth on SSH keys. The appropriate commands for that OS. Now that we know this exists, let's go ahead and do it together. I'm going to print all of the files in a Git directory. I just have paths for the current directory and the previous one. Now that we have these arguments exact itself, we're going to be using this command to simplify the entire process. Right here, I'm going to type in my email, andrewjosephneed@gmail.com. Perfect. Now I can go ahead and hit enter, which is going to generate 2 new files in our SSH folder. When you run this command, you're going to get greeted with a few steps. I want you to use the default for all of them. Here they want to ask you if you want to customize the file name. I do not recommend doing that. You can just hit enter. Next up, they ask you for a passphrase, which we're not going to use. I'm going to hit enter for no passphrase. Then I need to confirm the passphrase, so I'll just hit enter again. And right here, we get a little message that our SSH key was properly created, and that it was indeed saved in our folder. You can see that right here. With this in place, I can now cycle back through my previous commands and running the ls command, and what do I get? I get ID_RSA, and I get the ID_RSA.pub. The ID_RSA file contains the private key. This is a key you should never give to anyone. It lives on your machine and your machine only. The .pub file, that is the public file. This one is the one we're going to use for third-party services like GitHub or Heroku, which we'll be doing in the next several videos. Now that our keys are generated, the last thing we need to do is start up the SSH agent and add this key so it knows that it exists. We're going to do this by running 2 commands. First up, we're going to run eval. Then we're going to open some quotes. Inside of here, we're going to use the $sign and open and close some parentheses. Just like this. And inside of our parentheses, we're going to type SSH-agent space with the S. This is going to start up the SSH agent program, and it's also going to print the process ID to confirm it is indeed running. And right here, we get agent ID 16547. The process ID is obviously different. If you get something back like this, you are good to go. Next up, we have to tell the SSH agent where this file lives. We're going to do that using SSH-add. This takes the path to our private key file, which we have in the user directory /.sh/ID_RSA. When I run this, I should get a message like identity added. This means that the local machine now knows about this public-private key pair, and it'll try to use these credentials when it communicates with a third-party service like GitHub. Now that we have this in place, we are ready to configure GitHub. We're going to make an account, set it up, and then we'll come back here and test that things are working as expected. And now let's head into the browser and go to github.com. Here we'll be able to log into our existing account or create a new one. If you need a new one, GitHub dashboard. When you're done, the SSH page, which is a bit, and you need to do 2 things. 1, give it a name. And the name can be anything you like. I usually use one that uniquely identifies my computer since I have a couple. I'm going to use MacBook Pro, just like this. Next up, we need to grab the contents of that ID_RSA pub file. That contains the SSH key to your GitHub account article. This contains a command you can use to copy the contents of that file to your clipboard and right inside the terminal. Now obviously it is different for Mac, Windows, and Linux, so go ahead and run the command for your operating system, which is available on GitHub. Click the text area and paste it in. Take a moment to copy the contents of ID_RSA pub. This command can be executed from anywhere on your machine. You don't need to be in your project folder to do this. We're going to use SSH, which tries to make a connection. We're going to use the T flag followed by the URL we want to connect to, git@github.com. This is going to test our connection. It's going to make sure that the SSH keys are properly set up and we can securely communicate with GitHub. When I run the command, I get a message saying that the authenticity of the host, github.com, can't be established. We know that we want to communicate with github.com. We're expecting that communication to happen, so we can go ahead and hit yes. From here, we get a message from the GitHub servant. Hi, AndrewJB, which is my username. You should see your username here. Be successfully authenticated, but GitHub does not provide shell access. If you are seeing this message, then you are done. You're ready to create your first repository and push your code up. Now, if you're not seeing this message, something went wrong along the way. Maybe the SSH key wasn't generated correctly, or it's not getting recognized by GitHub. Go ahead and if you're right here, we have our new repository button. Once you have a name, you can give it full projects, and your repository. And it's giving you a little setup, because currently there is no code to view, so it's giving you a few instructions depending on which situation you're in. What we have is an existing repository. So I'm going to copy this URL, push it up here. We're going to see our repository really, really well. We also have issue tracking, pull requests, you can create it. And if you click that one commit button, you can actually go to the commit page, and here we see the initial commit message that we. Now that we have our code pushed up, we are done. In the next video, we're going to look at how we can communicate with Heroku to deploy our code. Then after that, we'll look at some real-world workflows for creating new commits, pushing to GitHub, and deploying to Heroku. By the end of this section, you'll be a master at the process, so fear not. As long as you're able to see your code here, then you are all set up. You'll never need to touch those SSH keys again.